For a long time now, small, affordable cars have been a bit, well, to put it bluntly, just miserable. Most manufacturers seem obsessed with making everything look grown up, premium and serious, even when the cars themselves are supposed to be cheap, everyday runarounds. But then Fiat launched this. This is the Grande Panda. This bonkers little thing feels like somebody at Fiat finally remembered that small cars are allowed to be fun. This new Panda has generated massive attention online because it looks completely different, well, from pretty much anything else in its segment. It's colourful, it's quirky, it's boxy, and it's unapologetically retro. But here's the interesting thing. You see, once you move beyond the styling, opinions of the Grande Panda become a little bit more divided. Some people think this is exactly the sort of small, affordable, cheerful car that Europe desperately needs more of. But others think that Fiat have sacrificed too much of the Panda's original simplicity in the pursuit of trendy crossover styling. And after spending a week driving this top-spec Prima model, I can kind of see it from both sides. Because while this car absolutely has charm, it also has flaws. So in this review, I'm going to talk through everything. We're talking about the good bits, the frustrating bits, where Fiat has really impressed me, and where I think rivals still do things a little bit better. Because the Grande Panda might not be perfect, but I do think that it's one of the most interesting small cars which has been launched in a very long time. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you do like new car reviews and car content just like this, then you're in the right place. Make sure you go ahead and you hit that subscribe button. The Grande Panda range starts at just under £19,000, and that's in the UK for the entry-level pop hybrid, and that already feels pretty well equipped for the money. Even the cheapest car still gets things like the 10-inch digital driver's display, 10.25-inch touchscreen, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and also Android Auto built in. You get rear parking sensors, adaptive cruise control, and a full suite of modern safety systems, which is fab, because there's nothing worse than going for the entry-level version of a car only to feel like the manufacturer has deliberately stripped everything out of that model to push you into a more expensive trim. Now, sitting above that is the Icon model. Now, this adds a few visual upgrades and some extra bits of equipment, but honestly, I think I'd skip straight past it, because for another £2,000, this Prima model suddenly starts to feel like a very complete little car. At just under £22,000, you're getting heated seats, there's a heated steering wheel, there's climate control, you get a reversing camera, front parking sensors, wireless phone charging, built-in navigation, larger alloy wheels, roof rails, and you also get some much nicer interior finishes as well. And when you actually step back and you look at everything you're getting here, I think this feels like proper good value for money. Because this car feels like it's designed for everyday life to make it easier and more enjoyable, rather than just simply chasing the badge prestige or pretending to be something that it isn't. Now, before we actually hit the road in this little bundle of joy, I want to quickly tell you about something that I've been using throughout my week with the Panda, and that's actually this. This is the Wolfbox rear view mirror dash cam. In fact, some of the driving that you're going to see during this review has actually been filmed directly through this dash cam itself. Because you see, the front camera actually records in full 4K, while the rear view camera actually records in 2.5K. So the footage is genuinely impressive, especially for something that still functions as your rear view mirror. It's also really easy to use, and honestly, it actually works quite a lot like a smartphone. You get a full touchscreen interface built directly into the mirror itself. You also get voice control support, Wi-Fi connectivity, and you also get an app that lets you quickly transfer the footage onto your phone. And one of my favourite features is the voice command functionality. Hey Wolf, take picture. It even supports 24-hour parking, and you get loop recording. And this particular version also comes with a bumper camera as well. Now, I've not personally mounted that during this time with it, but I can really see how this would work really well for off-roading. It's a bit like the down-facing cameras that you get on something like a Defender. If you'd like to check one out for yourself, then what I'll do is I'll leave the link down below in the description box. And there'll also be a discount code on screen now, which can save you some money on your purchase as well. The Grande Panda range is available with a few powertrains, although currently only 2 of which are for sale in the UK. Buyers can choose between hybrid and fully electric versions, which gives the car much broader appeal than the previous Pandas. The fully electric model has actually attracted a lot of attention because it's one of the cheaper EVs currently on sale in the UK. That starts from around £21,000, and that version uses a 44 kilowatt-hour battery with 113 horsepower and offers officially up to 199 miles of WLTP range. Although I suspect this hybrid will be the version that most UK buyers will choose. It currently makes sense for a lot of people as it removes the stress of charging while still improving fuel economy compared to a normal petrol car. Underneath the bonnet of this hybrid is a 1.2 litre turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine with a 48-volt mild hybrid system and a 6-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox. Combined output is around 110 horsepower. Actually, that's around the same as my Up GTI, but it's certainly lacking a little bit of punch, probably due to its beefier size. This engine has actually divided opinions online quite heavily. I've been driving it for a week and I can see why. Around town it's generally smooth and easy going, but there are moments where the gearbox definitely feels slightly hesitant and occasionally it's unsure of itself at lower speeds. Now, under harder acceleration, the 3-cylinder engine does become noticeably vocal. If you've driven something like the Toyota Yaris hybrid, this Fiat definitely feels less polished and less refined overall. Fiat have clearly prioritised affordability and simplicity over cutting-edge hybrid technology. And for everyday driving, I actually think the system is relaxed and it suits the personality of the car reasonably well. Design is absolutely the Grande Panda's strongest feature because whether you love it or hate it, this car has something that many affordable modern cars are missing entirely, and that's personality. The more time that you actually spend around it, the more little details you start noticing. Fiat says that the Grande Panda takes inspiration from the original 1980s Panda, and you can absolutely see that immediately in its overall shape. So it's boxy, it's upright, and it's deliberately simple looking. But Fiat has modernised it in a way that feels much more clever than simply copying the old car. The front end is probably my favourite angle of this car because somehow it manages to look futuristic and retro at exactly the same time. The pixel-style LED lighting signature has become one of the car's signature features. And what's really clever about the lights is they're actually designed to look almost like old 1980s video game graphics or digital pixels. It's a very simple idea, but it gives the car a fun, playful character that instantly separates it from its rivals. Well, apart from the king of pixels, of course, Hyundai. Now, one of the coolest details has got to be this massive embossed Panda lettering, which is stamped right into the doors. It should look ridiculous on paper, and I know that some people are going to think so, but I think it really works. It gives this side profile a really playful sense of identity, and I also think it helps to break up what would otherwise be quite a tall slab-sided design. The black cladding, also running along the lower body, helps to visually slim the car down a little bit, whilst adding a little bit of ruggedness. Even the alloy wheel designs are full-on geometric patterns and squared-off shapes. Fiat has clearly been obsessed about consistency here because almost every element of this car follows the same visual theme. The upright windscreen and the short overhangs and tall roofline make it look approachable rather than intimidating. And around the back, the pixel theme continues to the rear lights, helping give the car a really cohesive look. Although my fiance said that the floating style rear lights look a bit like when they lock cheese away in supermarkets, and I really can't help but unsee that. They also protrude quite unusually far from the bodywork, and I do worry about knocking them into things. The rear end itself is quite upright and simple, which again links back to older Pandas, whilst also helping maximise boot space. We'll talk about that a little bit further down the review. This is genuinely one of those cars which the designers have clearly had a bit of fun, but you'll have to let me know what you think. Do you love it or do you hate it? Now, inside is where the Grande Panda has really surprised me the most, because this cabin has got more personality than almost anything at this price point. And the more you look, the more you see. So many modern interiors now look identical, with giant black screens and minimalistic designs that feel cold and slightly depressing. But the Grande Panda goes in completely a different direction. This dashboard is so interesting to look at. So this oval shape is actually inspired by Fiat's historic Lingotto rooftop test track, which is a really clever detail, and it even has a little car travelling around it. You get this bamboo fibre BAM box in this La Prima, and it's actually functioning as a little storage area. And again, it proves that Fiat have just had a bit of free rein to have fun with this car. The seats are also far more colourful and characterful than you'd expect in a car in this segment. So they've clearly tried to make this feel cheerful rather than overly serious. There's imitation white leather at the top, and then you get funky fabric as you go lower down. To tie in with that funky dash, you have the yellow stitching. However, don't get me wrong, there are definitely moments where the materials and quality reminds you that this is still fundamentally a budget-focused car underneath all the clever styling. So the doors may look cool, they're finished in blue and they also match the seats, and you get this embossed Fiat lettering, but they're very hard, scratchy plastic, and in my opinion, they also emit a bit of an odour as well. The technology itself is refreshingly simple to use though, and I love that the cabin isn't filled with screens. The touchscreen is actually reasonably responsive and the menus are easy to understand. Thankfully, Fiat has also kept physical controls as well for the most important functions, like the climate control, rather than absolutely burying everything inside of the screen. In this top spec model, you also get automatic climate control, but there's no 2-zone. And it still has heated seats, it gets a heated steering wheel, and even a heated windscreen, which seems a distinct upgrade for the spec for Stellantis. Plus, despite there being no upgraded sound system, I've actually found the sound system to be very good. The one thing I have to critique is the lack of mirror in the sun visor. However, just like the exterior, almost everything about this cabin just makes me grin from ear to ear. The Grande Panda Hybrid is one of those cars that actually becomes more likeable the more time you spend with it. Because objectively, this is not the sharpest, it's not the quietest, or the most technically impressive small car on sale, but it does have a very easygoing attitude and charm that makes it pleasant to drive day to day. Around town is where this thing feels completely at home. The light steering, the upright seating position, and the compact dimensions definitely make it easy to manoeuvre around narrow streets or tight car parks. And visibility is excellent as well, which immediately makes the car feel more approachable and stress-free. The suspension setup is also quite soft, which helps the car to feel comfortable around town most of the time. Speed bumps and rough urban roads are generally handled well, although if you hit the odd sharper pothole, it can occasionally send a bit of a noticeable thump through the cabin. Fuel economy during my time with this car has actually been respectable, so I'm sitting at 54.3 miles per gallon, which I expect most owners will be perfectly happy with. But if you're after maximum efficiency, then you're going to look at rivals like the Yaris, which still do hybrid technology just a little bit better. Rear space is not exactly something that the old Panda was known for, but this Panda rewrites the story because it's very impressive in the back here. This is in my driving position, and as you can see, I've got a decent level of legroom and I've got very good headroom because it is tall and upright. That really helps with aiding with practicality in the back. There is a little bit of a load hump in the floor, but not too bad. And in this higher spec model, I've got 2 USB-C charge points, but I'm pretty sure that if you go for one of the lower specification models, you don't get rear charging, so bear that in mind. Sitting in the back here, however, these are a little bit uncomfortable, so you have to really hoik these up to be able to sit nice and comfortably. And there isn't an armrest with any cup holders, but there is storage in the doors, which is quite surprising to me because if you went for the Fiat 600, that doesn't get any door storage. So it's really good that they've managed to squeeze it in this smaller car. So overall, it's not the most spacious cabin, but for a small crossover, it's quite impressive. And then there's the boot space. And in this hybrid model, you get over 400 litres. In fact, you get 412 to be exact. If you go for the full EV, because of the battery, that does drop to 361, but it's still impressive. But in this hybrid form, that's bigger than a Peugeot 208, it's bigger than a Renault Clio and a Toyota Yaris. So very impressive. Also, because it's tall and relatively wide, you have quite a good load area. But what I will say is it's not finished off the nicest. You won't find any 12-volt charging. There's a few tether down points, but there isn't anything that goes above and beyond. There's also no adjustable boot floor. So if you're loading in heavy suitcases, it is actually quite difficult to get it up and over that lip. But what I will say is if you accidentally bump the back of the bumper, it doesn't matter because all of this is full plastic. So you're not going to scratch it. You're not going to have to worry about the paintwork, which definitely has its benefits. But what I will say is if you do find it difficult lifting down boot doors, then you'll find it difficult in the Fiat Panda because there isn't any option to have an electric boot. Value for money is probably one of the most important parts of the Grande Panda's story because ultimately this car succeeds or fails based on whether people feel emotionally drawn to it while still being able to justify the price tag. And after spending a week with it, I actually think Fiat has judged the balance pretty well. Because yes, you can absolutely point at rivals that are better in certain areas. For instance, a Renault Clio feels more refined on the motorway. A Toyota Yaris has a smoother and more complete hybrid system. But the Grande Panda fights back in other ways. Very few affordable cars currently have this much personality. It feels cheerful, distinctive, and refreshingly different from the increasingly serious and anonymous small crossovers that we've become used to. Yes, £22,000 is still a lot of money for a small car, but equally, modern cars have become dramatically more expensive across the board, and many rivals now creep way beyond this when you start adding automatic gearboxes or decent equipment levels. The difference with the Panda is it still manages to feel fun. And I think that emotional side of ownership matters far more than many manufacturers actually sometimes realise. The Grande Panda feels like it was designed by people who actually wanted to make everyday driving feel enjoyable again. It's practical, easy to use, surprisingly spacious and packed full of little details that feel genuinely interesting rather than just simply functional. And yes, some people online will still argue that this is no longer a proper Panda because it's bigger, it's more lifestyle focused and it's much more design led than older models. But personally, I think Fiat has actually understood something really important here. People don't just want cheap cars anymore. They want affordable cars that still feel desirable. And personally, I think that's exactly what the Grande Panda manages to be. But don't take my word for it. I want to know what you guys think of the Grande Panda. I have a feeling that my audience are going to be quite split on this. I know some of you will love it and some of you will really hate it, but let me know all of your feelings down below. I really hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys. See you later.